Hi guys, I'm Isha Thapar. I'm the editor-in-chief of Scientia, and I'm here with the authors of The Effects of Integrated Body-Mind Training on Motor Deficits Demonstrated Through Laparoscopic Task Performance. I'm here with Sanju, Sanjanaa, Caleb, and Nikita. So we're just going to talk to them a little bit about their research. So the first question I have is, what was the purpose of this research?
Yeah, so just some quick background. Our research was conducted in one of Baylor's Bio 1v90 independent research courses. And that specific class focused on introducing students to kind of the basics behind laparoscopic surgery. But with our research, we wanted to look specifically at some of the impacts of stress on laparoscopic task performance. As you can imagine, in recent years, stress rates have increased, and surgeons are one group whose profession directly contributes to that increase. Previous research in the field has also shown that higher stress rates can lead to burnout, and in surgeons, higher rates of medical errors. Essentially, our research explores one way to combat the negative effects of stress.
Great, and then what was your hypothesis?
Yeah, I can answer that too. So I touched on this briefly in the last question, but stress has been observed to cause burnout, which is a symptom of chronic stress. Burnout has also been shown to cause decreased attention and emotion regulation. So our group thought that this could be one of the potential reasons that stress and then burnout cause higher rates of medical errors. Within the confines of our Bio 1v90 course, we weren't actually able to look directly or directly measure stress. So instead, we looked into potential ways to mitigate some of these deficits that we see associated with stress and burnout. And that brought us to IBMT. So what IBMT is it's a type of mindfulness meditation that works to increase awareness on an individual's body, breathing, and external instructions. But the most important part of IBMT, for our research at least, is that it has been observed to increase attention and emotion regulation. So all that being said, our hypothesis was that IBMT may offset motor deficits primarily caused by decreased attention and emotion regulation in the context of laparoscopic surgery.
Awesome, and then what was the conclusion you guys found?
Yeah, so in our Bio 1v90 class, we conducted a study using a laparoscopic box, assessing um, times for the laparoscopic task performance with the pegboard exercise, and our scores represented a combination of an efficient time and low number of errors, and we interpreted these as better laparoscopic performance. Each participant's control was compared with their treatment average to determine if there was an increase after in the score after the meditation session. We used a dependent t-test with a sample size of 24, and we obtained a p-value of 0.097. So there was a 9.7 chance that these results were purely coincidental. Our study didn't have enough evidence to conclude significance with the alpha value of 0.05. So we failed to reject our null hypothesis that IBMT may improve laparoscopic task proficiency. And we also investigated the effects of previous exposure of IBMT on task performance. So we compared those with previous exposure and those without. And we also used dependent t-tests for this, and we got p-values of 0.32 and 0.018. And then the 0.32 were the ones with previous exposure to meditation, and 0.018 for those with no previous exposure. And then since 0.018 is lower than our alpha value of 0.05, we were able to reject the null that IBMT does not have a positive influence on laparoscopic task performance on those without exposure to meditation. So with this, there's an indication that IBMT can be useful in laparoscopy to surgeons with no previous exposure to meditation.
Awesome, and then if you could, how would you expand this study in the future?
Sure. So there's kind of three different avenues we would like to go on for expanding this study in the future. So the first would be experimental design. due to the confines of the class, we weren't able to actually use real surgeons, and we were using students in this situation in a classroom. So a way to expand the study would be to have surgeons placed in an operating room that is very similar to their surgical environment and their work environment, which would help us see profession-specific stressors and how specifically it would impact their laparoscopic proficiency. So that would be kind of our first avenue to making the experimental design more accurate and more directed towards our population that we're looking at. Our second avenue would be imaging. So we'd like to do some functional imaging to isolate changes in activation levels before and after IBMT. So the use of functional imaging would help us reveal neural networks that are currently overlooked in IBMT literature and the status quo. And isolating this would also show us the specific networks affected and effective therapies that could possibly or potentially come from the techniques the IBMT technique. And then the third avenue is longitudinal studies, is something we're interested in because of the application that they have. Current literature in the field is lacking longitudinal studies and shows that variation in duration and repetition of IBMT sessions can lead to different effects. So we'd like to expand the study by finding more longitudinal studies and having that be a basis for the varied effects and seeing which combination of repetition and duration can provide the best therapies for different individuals.
Great. And then what was your favorite part of this study?
Yeah, so one of the most exciting parts was that we were able to do this research on our peers, since it was human-based research, which was really fun because these are our Baylor peers that we see every day in class. And we actually got to run tests on them and see how meditation affected their ability to do laparoscopic tasks. So there was a lot of human interaction, and we were also able to invite a professor that teaches at Baylor University to host the meditation session. So that was neat too.
Awesome. And is there any advice you guys would give to aspiring student researchers?
Yeah, and you guys can also add on to the end. But so I thought it was important just to have feedback. So one of the most important things is to talk to people about ideas to make sure that they are going on to some objective that you want to try to go towards. So I talk to professors. I know we all talk to professors. We talk to peers. So in this case, working with friends and groups of people that had diverse thought really helps. So Sanjanaa and Caleb are both neuro majors, and so they could help with that. And then another thing that I would encourage students to do is to just write down their ideas, like make a Venn diagram, just jot anything that comes to mind, because eventually you will get that one idea that you think, oh, like this is going to be good. So just keep writing stuff down, inspire yourself.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.